Hey there folks, so welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the debut self-titled from Fetty Wap. You know, I've stated a number of times this year that 2015 has been great for hip-hop. From the revival of more conscious hip-hop to the explosion of potency in the underground to genre-bending experiments to old veterans returning with what has always worked for them, it's a good time to be in the rap game right about now. And yet, if you look at the mainstream charts, there's one name that kind of stands out like a sore thumb to me. An artist who seemingly appeared from out of nowhere and yet won over a crossover audience with hit after hit after hit. And his name is Fetty Wap. The Wap being added later as a tribute to his favorite rapper, Gucci Mane. Okay, already not off to a great start, and you dig into Fetty Wap's story, it doesn't seem to ring as all that different than many rappers in that particular lane as Gucci Mane. He grew up in the projects in New Jersey, started working on his rap career, and decided to throw in more singing into his delivery because he wanted to do something that was a little bit different. Of course, he's not alone in rappers who add sung vocals to their bars, but there are very few who could match his warbling, part Haitian, part Bismarcky voice. From there, he released a song called Trap Queen in early 2014, and a year later, it started climbing the charts, as I've chronicled on Billboard Breakdown. The incredibly delayed reaction to that song probably can be attributed to shifts in the mainstream's taste. I mean, Young Thug's half-sung, half-rap style hadn't yet broken through with lifestyle, and Future spent most of 2014 wallowing in depressed, angry mediocrity, so I'm not surprised it didn't really catch on in the mainstream. But Fetty Wap was different. He had energy and personality, a knack for some impressively sticky hooks, and decent enough writing, at least for pop radio, and his synth-heavy beats were breezy and bright enough to draw a lot of attention. And the music thing is that it doesn't seem like Fetty Wap's team expected this much success and hype to come this quickly, as he snagged a spot on the XXL freshman list and people started clamoring for that debut album. And I'll admit I was interested. I mean, sure, Fetty Wap could hold down some singles, but a full album, much bigger proposition, especially when said album is 17 songs and runs for over an hour. Not exactly what I'd advise for a starting rapper riding a wave of hype, but if they're looking to strike while the iron's hot, this would be the way to do it. So, what do we get from Fetty Wap? Well, honestly, I got both more and less than what I was expecting. First, let me establish that in my quest to finding ignorant hip-hop that I actually enjoy, Fetty Wap probably came the closest with this self-titled album. And yet with that, it's not without its fair share of issues. But the issues are mostly what you would expect from a debut album that was hastily thrown together by a guy in a team that's kind of new to the industry, trying to capitalize on newfound success they weren't prepared for. As such, it's a bizarrely amateurish patchwork of singles, mixtape tracks, and new material that, yes, is kind of overlong and kind of repetitive, but is played so goddamn earnestly that's kind of hard not to find some enjoyment in all of it. In other words, even though this record is kind of haphazard, sounds a little cheap, and it's not all that intelligent, there is a spark of passion to it that really managed to click with me. So yeah, this debut, it might not be a great album, but it is good. I did like this. And I think part of that is Fetty Wap himself. And I know what a bunch of you are immediately gonna think. He doesn't like Future, he doesn't like Young Thug, so why the hell is he like this guy? Well, part of it is that at his best, Fetty Wap sounds engaged and can ride his beats pretty effectively. He doesn't feel the need to indulge in off-kilter Young Thug-esque vocal gymnastics that go off rhythm, or suffocate his voice in autotune like Future. There is a little bit of autotune, but his warbling at half rap, half sing feels a shade bit more organic, with the fact that he actually has some solid flows that can connect and that works in his favor. He's not a bad rapper. Then again, part of it might be the easy parallel that can be made with his friend Monty, who shows on about half of this album with more guest verses for a more conventional, if a little bit more basic flow that helps Fetty Wap stand out even further. And sure, Fetty Wap's not exactly subtle, but I'll make the Bismarcky comparison again. It's so broad and goofy that it's kind of hard for me to dislike it. And honestly, that's why the moments where he talks about, say, screwing your girl, like on the outro of Trap Queen, or the album Low Point, couple bands where he compares his rough sex from beatings from Ike Turner and Mike Tyson. Dude, you're not hard. Stop trying for that. It doesn't work for you at all. Then again, trying to break down lyrically what Fetty Wap does here often proves futile, because you're not gonna find much here beyond flossing, a couple snaps against haters, shouts out for his crew, and more than your fair share of crooning verses where he shows a surprising amount of genuine tenderness for his Trap Queen, his girl. Trap Queen is the easiest example, where they're baking pies together, but then there's My Way, where he talks about defending this girl's honor against her ex, or again where he's trying to win her back, or the tribute to making love to his girl on That's All Me, that's played with such sincerity, I found it kinda cute. It worked for me. That said, sincerity and personality can only take a record so far, and this album runs out of unique material fast. Metaphors and bars get reused wholesale from song to song. There's a Mortal combat metaphor about Liu Kang that gets used twice, and most Fetty Wap singles have bars that show up in fragments on other songs on this album. And considering this record runs 17 tracks and over an hour, like I said before, if Fetty Wap wanted to stick with more unique content, he could have made a much stronger, much more focused set of tracks that were just pure bangers at maybe 10 or 11 songs, under an hour. On top of that, this is not an album that sticks to one topic very well. On any given song, Fetty Wap will be hyping his crew, blowing away his enemies, or flossing, and this can make otherwise pretty decent tracks hard to stand out amongst the pack. There are some good songs here and some good bars that connect, but they often feel so scattershot that they don't really come together. And the exasperating thing is that if this album had more focus lyrically, it could have taken advantage of its greatest assets, which takes us to the instrumentation and production. Now I'll get the biggest criticism out of the way first. The production of this album sounds pretty cheap and more often than not pretty thin. The synths and pianos are pretty lightweight, the beats all clearly come from a preset, there's barely any texture, and the fake horns and the strings on tracks like Jug are not fooling anybody. There's barely any feelings of opulence or grandeur or drama or grit. If Fetty Wap and his producers had picked up these beats and synth tones from an online storefront, I would not be that surprised. And yet despite that, the foundational melodies behind this album are really surprisingly strong. From the interweaving synth lines to the harmonized multi-tracking that gives this album a lot more swell than you'd ever expect. And those melodies are near the forefront at all times. No drowning the mix and bass. This record was made knowing that the way that songs stick in the brain are with melodic foundation. This album has some great hooks, and there's a lot of songs that leverage it to the best of their abilities. Trap Queen's blending of gleaming keys and chiptunes against a buzzing background, the muted melodic swells of How We Do Things and the closer rewind, the surprisingly strong symphonic swell of RGF Island and I Wonder that really could have had Fetty Wap going a little bit harder in the latter keys to make that song really pop for me. Then you have the guitar sneaking into the background on Time, or the more island-inspired progressions in the synths on I'm Straight. And then there's Trap Love, easily my favorite track because that synth line and the hook really kicks with some impact as the bass kicks in with every single note that's played. That's using your beat to augment your melody instead of overpowering it and making the most out of what you have for your groove. That's surprisingly economical and it really kicks ass. A solid banger. Now look, I'm not saying that this is a great album. It's too long, it runs out of ideas quickly, and it's hard to ignore that this is an album that's coasting on personality and energy, anything close to content or a budget. But there is a certain charm and sense of fun to this when it's done right, and Fetty Wap gets that. And if you like material from Future or Young Thug or Migos, Fetty Wap brings a distinctive enough flavor and personality to stand out in a good way. It's got a lot of pop appeal to me. For me, it's a very solid 6 out of 10 and a recommendation. I'm not going to promise that you're going to get more than what you've already heard on the radio from Fetty Wap, but you know what? I kind of want to see this album do well and succeed. There's real potential behind this guy, and I want to see how far Fetty Wap can really push it. So check this out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation or any other albums coming out, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Just keep in mind my schedule is overloaded right now. I'm trying to get to as much as I can, and even still, the next couple weekends are going to be real busy for me. But putting all that aside, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.